Hi Moonbeams, it's Nikki T here at Moonchild Tarot with a tag for you today. This is the Tarot Tube Positivity tag created by the wonderful Jack at Jack Greenwood Tarot, who has always been supportive of my channel, and so I want to bring that support into him, and I'm really excited to get into the questions. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first question on Jack's tag is, how do you deal with negative thoughts and feelings? Pull a card and then see what the message is. So I think I'm gonna flip through the Raven's Dream Tarot as I do it. I'm just acknowledging that's on. This is something that I really do struggle with and have struggled with for a very, very long time. I now, having worked through, had a lot of talking therapy, unpacked a lot of trauma, had a lot of EMDR for, for trauma that's from a result of being neurodivergent in a kind of society that's not made for neurodivergent people. I've kind of got better with it, got a lot better. I still do have my moments, but I feel like, and at the moment I'm struggling a little bit with keeping positive at the moment, and I do find that going out in nature, I know people say touch grass, or my mentor used to say touch a tree, go out and touch a tree. Yeah, Nick, go out and touch a tree, put your feet in water, but it's completely true. I have felt really, really rough this morning, and after I took my daughter out to dropped my daughter off to school, I went out for my walk. I didn't feel like doing it, but just being out in nature, just going for that walk, just having that bit of exercise. And I live in a really, really beautiful location. I'll pop some pictures on the screen. So I do live in a really, really beautiful hilly location where I am able to connect with nature a lot more. And I do feel it. I feel so much better when I'm out in nature, obviously not when it's tipping it down with rain, which is what we've had all last week. And that really got me a bit miserable. I love going to the ocean and being by the sea and going on the beach and stuff. And I think that kind of helps me deal with the negative thoughts and feelings, is going out, appreciating nature, spending some time in nature, looking at the birds. Like every day we look, we see what the jackdaws are doing, we see what the crows are doing. This is why I love crow decks. We've got a rook as well that I spotted today. And yeah, just seeing what they're doing, and that kind of helps put things into perspective. While you're experiencing that negative thought or feeling, the world is still turning. Nature is still, whatever's happening at the moment, and you might be feeling like really disempowered and like hopeless and everything, but nature keeps coming through. I'm always reminded of like how poppies can grow in the smallest and smallest of cracks in a pavement, and how nature, just even though in the harshest conditions, can still survive, can still try and thrive. And the sunflowers turn to the sun, that kind of feeling. I did study a lot of Carl Rogers when I did counselling, and he noted as a child that potatoes thrown in a bin in the worst conditions with like very little light, poor soil, very little moisture, still actually grew and still thrived. And I always try and keep that with me, that even though the circumstances might not be the best at the moment, you can still reach up to that light. You can still kind of keep going and keep pushing through, because nature, you know, sometimes grows in the worst conditions and still keeps going and is still kind of here. Yeah. So connecting with nature, going and touching a tree, going and seeing what the birds are doing, going for that walk, brushing my hand through, you know, the grass and the flowers or whatever, it really helps me ground and kind of deal with it, along with music, which I'm going to talk about later on, because today I did fire up my music as I was going through and walking, you know, taking my walk through nature. I was blasting music to try and kind of build that energy. And yeah, and I think as well with negative thoughts is acknowledging that they are negative thoughts, acknowledging that sometimes you will have intrusive thoughts, sometimes you will have these thoughts come in, acknowledging them and naming them and actually saying that's an intrusive thought. You know, if it's something about the future, I like to say that's a future Nikki problem. If I'm worried about what will happen in the future, or what if this happens, well, that's a future Nikki problem, and future Nikki will deal with it rather than present Nikki, if you know what I mean. And it helps me detach a little bit from that worry, because I am a worrier. I do worry a lot about just everything. I worry about the world. I worry about, you know, my kids, my family, everything. And just to kind of go, that's a future Nikki problem. Future Nikki will deal with it. She's capable. She's got through her stuff. And the same with the past. You can't change the past. You can't control it. You can't do anything about it. You can learn from it very much. You can learn and notice that pattern and you know, try not to do it again. But you shouldn't kind of hold yourself a prisoner to the past. And the same with the future. It's about just trying to be as much in the present moment as you can. And it was something that I really, really did struggle with. And over the past couple of years, I have got better. I wouldn't say I'm perfect. I do have my moments, but I'm more aware of my thoughts and how they can manifest unhealthily within me, and allowing myself to rest as well, because sometimes, a lot of the time, these negative thoughts come because I'm tired, I've got no spoons, I've got multiple sclerosis, and I'm autistic as well, and I burn out very easily. So just realizing that sometimes it's okay to just zone out and rest, and it might be just your mind needs rest and your body doesn't. So I will go for a walk and I will put music on, so my, you know, it does relax my kind of brain and I can process things. So yeah, so the next one was I've been talking too much. Pull a card to see what the message is. So what do I need to know about, how do I deal with negative thoughts? What do I need to know about? Okay. Oh, the Lovers. So I think it comes down to that choice. I think always with the Lovers card, I always see that, you know, Adam and Eve had the choice of whether they ate the apple or whether they, you know, carried on living in blissful ignorance, I would say. But it's that choice. It's whether you take on that negative thought and whether you let it define you and whether you let it kind of all consume you, or whether you kind of acknowledge it's there, but then do steps to move forward. And what can I do about it? Like, I was stuck for a long time in a very victim mentality. Why does it happen to me? And I still have my moments, but like, well, why would this happen to me? Oh, my luck and everything. And it's like, but what can I do about it? what do I need to do now to move through and to face that challenge? And, you know, I'm a complete survivor. I have gone through a lot. I have worked through a lot. I have been through some tough moments on my path, and I choose to keep going. And that shows that that positive, I am a fighter, and that negativity is not going to keep me down. I'm not going to choose that kind of route of saying, oh, it's, always happens to me, or anything. I'm going to choose that path of, what can I do about it? How can I move through this? How can I work through this? I hope that's making sense. But yeah, it's a choice. I do feel like it's a choice with how you frame these kind of and work through these negative thoughts. Next question is, what are you grateful for? And I thought I'd bring out the zombie tarot for this one. I am grateful for my kids, my absolutely amazing husband. He is, and ironically, the King of Cups has come out. He's a Pisces. And I don't know whether Pisces is the fixed. I'd have to look it up, but he is very, he's my emotional rock. He keeps me grounded. He keeps me kind of on the straight and narrow, and he's amazing. I am so grateful for my children and seeing how they've grown up and how they are growing up. I've got my daughter's just turned 10 today. Well, it'll be yesterday when this comes out, but she's turned 10 and my son is 13, and they are like chalk and cheese. My son is a lot more quieter, a lot more shy, and he has, a keen interest in computer games and computers and how things work, as do a lot of boys at that age, but also a keen love of history. He's really, really into learning about World War One at the moment. And just learning about anything to do with history and numbers. He memorized how long World War One was in days. He's very, very quick with he can work out how many days or how many months something is and something like that. He's very good with his like numbers, puzzles, everything. Whereas my daughter is the opposite. She is very outgoing, very talkative, very chatty, very dramatic, and she is very much a lover of nature and all creatures. She's got an obsession with cats and capybaras, and yeah, she's just a ray of sunshine. She's very, very rarely, she does get grumpy, and she does, sometimes have a moment, but she's always usually got that positive vibe and positive energy. And I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for music and humor, and having a sense of humor, hence why I've got the zombie tarot out. Music, I have got such a wide range of musical taste, down from influenced by my dad, which like Motown, the Beatles, through with my mum, things like Neil Diamond, Queen, and my own tastes, like thinking into bands like The Cure and The Smiths, and going then into bands like Iron Maiden. I love Iron Maiden. And my current obsession, which is Ghost. Music, I am so grateful for music, because no matter where I am, what I'm doing, or what mood I'm in, I can pick music that can help reflect that mood. Music always, and especially the music of Ghost. Ghost has got me through. I mean, it started with Iron Maiden, but then into Ghost. Ghost got me through my accepting my autism diagnosis, having my diagnosis of MS like later on, that band absolutely saved me. Absolutely saved me, because it gave me hope in a place where I didn't have a lot of hope to give, or to have. I love, I'm grateful for, comedy and a sense of humor. I'm a big fan of Monty Python and that kind of type of weird humor. So like the zombies, I like my humor with a little bit of a darker edge and stuff, and that kind of surrealist kind of humor and stuff like that just really gets me through. Like I love what's his name from What We Do in the Shadows, Matt Berry. I think he is an absolute comic genius. Me and my husband are constantly quoting lines from Toast, his sitcom he had, where he's like Stephen Toast. And I've been watching recently little clips of from What We Do in the Shadows and things like that. So just having that comedy, having that humor, I'm grateful that we have programs like that really do cater to my very weird brain. I say weird. And the same with music. Like I can go from listening to, Gladys Knight and the Pips and, Michael Jackson and stuff like that, to going through to listening to, doomy metal that like Year of the Goat and Vexing Hex. Like I love how I'm grateful that I've been exposed to such a wide variety of music over the years, and that I have that love of just lots and lots of different music. If it's got a catchy, usually if it's got a catchy tune, I'm there. Yeah. So then one for this was to pull a card. What do I need to know about gratitude? So what do I need to know about gratitude? Ooh. The world is my oyster. And this is kind of reminding me of a song that I do hold really dear, called Future is a Foreign Land, and it's very I'm trying to get the words. I'm struggling with words today. It's kind of a bittersweet song of, if the world all burnt down, if we had this kind of end of world event, I would hold you close. And that, that's what gets me through. That's what makes me grateful, that I can hold my husband, my kids, and I can hold them close. And, that is my world there. That is kind of, sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. That is my world there. And I am so grateful for their love and for having them. And yeah, they are amazing. And it does, my world is my family. You could take music away from me. I haven't listened to a lot of music haven't listened to music for a couple of months actually, because I've not felt in that mood to do it. Same with comedy. You could take that all away, but don't take my family away. Like, my family are, my rock. My family are the reason that I keep going and I keep pushing through and I keep getting up in the morning, and they are my world. Sorry, getting a bit deep here. But yeah. Third question is, Spread some joy and love. Pull a card and put a positive spin on it. I thought I would use my bonfire for this one. Apologies if the camera's shaking. I think I keep knocking my desk. So what card do we need to put a positive spin on? What card do we need to put a positive spin on? Oh, I think that one came first. Let's take this, the Four of Coins, and the Hermit. I'm gonna take all of these. So, Four of Coins. It would have to be the Four of Coins because I always have a problem with this card being portrayed as the miser card and like holding on too tight to finances. To me, that is a positive. If you're looking after what you have, that's going to bring more fruit. If you're, the positive spin on it is you hold things close that are dear to you and you look after them. You don't throw that away frivolously. It's the same with energy, like holding your energy close and not just giving it away, willy-nilly type thing, not just throwing your energy away on stuff that's not important, like worrying and algorithms and things like that. Like holding it close, being precious of your time. Like we've got the heart there and it's got it's a heart-shaped lock and key. Like holding the things that are dear to you close. And I don't see this as a negative card. I see this as a card of almost like you're protecting your assets, you're investing in yourself, you're being responsible as somebody who's a Capricorn, who is very much, responsible and kind of has that responsible vibe to them. We're not like the mountain goat for nothing. We are resilient, we're responsible, we're grounded. I kind of see this as a positive card because you're holding on to that investment and you're making kind of clear decisions about it. The Hermit, yeah, it's okay to have that time to yourself. It's okay to have that time to be alone and to recharge. You don't have to always, apologies if you can hear, we've got I don't think it's bin men, but we've got big service vehicles going past. The Hermit, you can have that time. It's okay to have that time to yourself, to have that time to reflect, to go inward to yourself. You don't have to keep on throwing your energy at things. You can retreat and you can contemplate, you can have that, you can spend that time in that hanged man position and wait and make a decision. You can ponder things until you know it's right and then you can move forward. It's okay to stay in this, sometimes you can call it kind of the purgatory. You can stay in this state of, you don't need to decide yet. You can hold on to what you've got and you can kind of reflect until it's time to move, until it's time to kind of chase that fire. Next prompt is, what makes you happy? Pull a card of what brings me happiness. I've said that before. My family make me happy. Music makes me happy. Comedy, silliness, that kind of weird, abstract sense of humour that I have makes me happy and brings me joy. Also, I've got a guilty pleasure of, I love really bad reality TV shows like Housewives and stuff like that. It's one of my guilty pleasures. Crochet most of the time makes me happy, but not when you're making a cardigan with really, really thin yarn at the moment. So at the moment, crochet is a bit of a it's becoming a bit of a chore. Tarot makes me happy most of the time. Sometimes I'm there scratching my head. But yeah, I mean music is, music, films, things like that, they have that ability to, make you laugh, make you feel things. And yeah, and I mean, you know, what makes me happy? My family, my husband, my kids, music, getting out in nature. And I'm so fortunate that I live in a really, really nice place where I can go for walks and things like that. So I should have been, and that's on the Two of Cups. This is the Kawaii Tarot. So, I don't want to, I'll go on to pulling my card because I don't want to talk too much. I think I've talked quite a lot about what makes me happy. So, what makes me happy? What makes me happy? What makes me happy? What makes me happy? Okay. So, we've got the Two of Swords, and I think again that can be that decision. It can be that I will kind of hang in this state before I make a decision. I will make sure I've got all of the variables before I make a decision. We've also got the Queen of Coins, and this is I really do identify with the Queen of Pentacles, being a Capricorn, kind of having that very earthly, kind of grounded vibe. I love looking after people. I love helping others. I think that's where I shine, is when I'm helping others and I'm feeling helpful. And I know that, and I know Nyx mentioned this on her video about it, because she came from a similar point of view. It can be deemed as being a rescuer or trying to rescue people, but I don't think it's a bad thing to want to help people. I don't think it's a bad thing looking after people and making sure that they've got everything, and kind of putting that care and putting that attention. And, I'm the person that will reach out first. I'm the person that sometimes, with friendships, will be the one that remembers to check in or remembers to kind of, keep in touch and stuff like that. And I don't mind that. Obviously, when that's being taken for granted or kind of misused, then I put my boundaries in. But kind of having this caring, loving nature, being a teacher, you have to have that. And I think that's been like one of my benefits. I am getting better with boundaries because I did struggle with the boundaries with that. But now I can give that love to the people that I know will be appreciative and be, grateful for it, and will benefit from it and not kind of use it, to their advantage. I think, yeah, what makes me happy is that I can sit in this space and I will wait till I make a choice. I will examine the situation. I will weigh up both sides of the argument. I've got so much Libra in my chart, even though I've not got a Libra as like a sun, moon, or a rising. I'm a Cap sun, Sag moon, Aries rising. But I've got so much Libra in my other kind of placements. And I think that kind of balance, that mediator, I'm always the one that's kind of, even if I get annoyed at my son, I will kind of mediate and be like, well, this and this and everything, and try and explain it to him so he's clear about what's going on. Because often when I was young, I would get a reaction from someone, but then I would never know why they were having that reaction. And and being obviously neurodivergent, that led to a lot of trauma and everything. And that's why I ended up going into drama. I wanted to study people, and that sounds very, very strange, but I wanted to study people. I wanted to know how people clicked. I wanted to know about psychology. I wanted to do psychology A level, but was talked out of it because they didn't offer psychology A level at my college, and they talked me out of it to keep me at the college, and I did biology instead. Big mistake. But I've always had that interest. I've always wanted to understand people because I've wanted to help people. And then obviously going into teaching, I did want to kind of use that to help people and get people's confidence and everything. And then that progressed, and I moved into moved towards learning about counselling, and I've always had that desire to help and to help people. So yeah. What was that? What makes me happy? Yeah, helping people makes me happy, being that queen of coins. I joked to my husband that when we've got grandkids, I'm gonna be the grandma that's that's a bit like my mum as well, spoils them with chocolate and treats and stuff. And he's like, you will not. And I was like, I will, because I am a nurturer at heart. Now moving on to next question is, how do you treat yourself? This is the Ukiyo Tarot. I've not used this a lot, but I do love this deck, and it's a really good deck to riffle shuffle because I've got really bad hands, so I can't riffle and bridge. I can only riffle and bridge with this one. Yeah, how do I treat myself? I tend to kind of, and it's a hark back. I've just recently watched Zombieland, and I think that where he's got the rule of appreciate the little things. So for me, it's that cup of coffee. So being able to, when I go into town, if I'm going to the dentist, I can go to Greg's and get a coffee, having a nice cup of coffee. When my kids make me a cup of coffee, it's lovely because, it always tastes better when somebody else has made it. Having a nice cup of coffee, being, I treat myself to watching something that is a comfort to me, like Labyrinth, one of my favorite films. A Keanu Reeves, can't beat a Keanu Reeves film. A Keanu Reeves film, or watching a film from that really brings me comfort. My husband puts it on every birthday because it's one of my favourite films, is Breakfast at Tiffany's. Watching Breakfast at Tiffany's, as much as that's a horrendously problematic film now, I love watching, that moment with the cat and the rain and everything like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, I treat myself by watching a film that I know that is going to bring me comfort, is going to give me a hug. I will listen to music that I know is gonna, make me feel better and lift me, as I've been saying. I've been obsessed with Ghost. I went to see them in concert. I will, when I'm feeling a bit glum, I will listen to Ghost and I will remember that concert and how amazing and theatrical it was. People might say that they're goth Bon Jovi or goth ABBA or whatever, people kind of, are very derogatory about them online and stuff. They did one of the best concerts I have ever seen in terms of spectacle, in terms of what you get. And I've been to an Iron Maiden concert, which again is spectacle, is theatrical, is amazing, and I've been to concerts where it's been my favorite artist, and I've been completely let down by the poor attitude of the said artist. It was one of the bands I mentioned in the list of music that I like. The solo guy. And I was so, music can create such a mood and such a yeah, it's just amazing. Yeah, it can make you feel it can make you feel brilliant. It can make you feel poetic. It can make you can lift your spirits. It can hold you. It can heal you. It can also, make you feel terrible as well, as in said concert with said artist that made me, it was the most hyped experience, and then it turned out to be one of the, worst concerts that I'd been to. Um yeah, so how do I treat myself? I treat myself by listening to music, by putting a film on that's going to bring me comfort, by watching housewife shows. That's my treat. A little bit of chocolate every now and again, but I much prefer like coffee or ice cream or something like that. I'm not the type of person that kind of will be like, oh, I'll treat myself to a deck. When I'm getting a deck, I'm trying to get it secondhand. I make it a mission to kind of keep looking and everything and getting it at the right price and stuff like that. That gives me that adrenaline to know that I've got a good deal. So I'm not the type of person that would just go, oh, I'm just going to treat myself to a deck. I was talking to my husband yesterday, and I had a spur. We've got a spare £20 from something, and I was like, oh, I could buy a deck. I'm probably not going to buy a deck because I've got too many decks at the moment, and I need to work through them before I get the next one. But you know what I mean? I treat myself with the little things, going for a walk, watching the crows, just sitting with my daughter and, giggling with her and chatting to her and being silly and taking the mix. I'm the embarrassing mother, so she's always like, mother, you're embarrassing me. I'm that embarrassing mother. Spending time playing board games with my husband. I don't know whether he's going to be listening because he will hold me to that. But yeah, spending that time winning a board game, because it's very, very rare. I've won 2 board games. No, I didn't. I've won 1 board game. My son won the other board game of the weekend. My husband won none. And that in this house is an absolute feat, because he's always winning the board games. So yeah, winning at a board game, that spending time with family, being at the sea, being at the ocean, I love going to Yorkshire, and that's kind of my happy place. So we're going there again in August, and yeah, that is my treat. I'm looking forward to is going to Yorkshire, going to Whitby, spending that time kind of, with my family on the beach and stuff like that. So yeah, that's how I treat myself, with the little things in life. And I've got, some amazing friends that as well keep me going. So let's pull a card for how do I treat myself. Woo! How do I treat myself? 3 of Swords. Interesting. Now, with the 3 of Swords, I don't necessarily go down the negative route of this. Is the swords are galvanizing the heart. That pain that you've suffered, that pain that you've had, that makes you stronger. That makes you carry on. That pushes you through. These, swords through the heart, it's making it, stronger and more able to kind of move on and cope through it, and to appreciate what you have. You have to feel that pain in order to appreciate when things are good. You have to go through the mundane things in order to do things like appreciate the holiday that you've having, or appreciate the song that you really like. You have to go through some of the bad things, because then that makes that song or that holiday or that experience all the more sweeter. So definitely I treat myself as I turn the pain into something that can, push me forward, that can keep me going. I always joke to my husband, where when I feel like, oh, I'm not going to do it anymore, I I kind of go, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's the way I do it. I never give up on these things. I am, one resilient person. And yeah, that heartbreak can, lead to better things. And the storm, think about when a storm is coming. So I'm seeing the storm here. When the storm has come in, think about how fresh the air is after a storm. The storm here clears everything, it moves everything, it brings a freshness, it cuts through that thick energy. And that heartache is needed in order for you to appreciate the freshness after the storm, if that makes sense. I'm probably sounding like a lot of woo-woo there. But yeah, next question. Next question is, what's your next deck that you're bringing into your collection? And I've got the Ink and Inspiration here because the next deck I'm bringing into my collection, I've already bought. I bought it yesterday. It is a traditional Tarot de Marseille. I got a deal. It's them total tarot decks. So somebody was selling the decks from the magazine, so there's two of them, and one of them is the Tarot de Marseille. I want an original Tarot de Marseille so that I can, when I'm learning it, I can use the traditional, and then I'll move on to like other pip decks. I've got this pip deck, I've got loads of other pip decks, but that is the next deck that I'm bringing into my collection, is a real tarot, well, you say a real Tarot de Marseille, but an authentic Tarot de Marseille, so that I have something to study from. Same with the RWS. I have one RWS, and that's just for studying, because I don't really like reading with an RWS. I just don't get on with it. It's same, I think, with, I'm not an historical deck girly. They are beautiful, and I can appreciate the beauty. I can appreciate that they're fantastical and they're amazing. I get much more reading from a deck, say, like this. Yeah, so the next deck I'm bringing into my collection is a TDM, a Tarot de Marseille, and with that there's also the Thelema Tarot. Now, it was because it come in a bundle, it was really cheap. So I'm just like, oh, I'll have that anyway. It's not my style of artwork, but I'll have that there anyway in my collection, or use it for something. So yeah, the next question is a unicorn deck or decks. Many of you might know that my unicorn deck that I wanted was the Tarot of Vampires. This is the Spanish version. This is me getting as close to that deck as possible. I've got the guidebook on my phone. I've got this. So I've got the cards. This was a unicorn deck for when it went out of print, because I'd spent so much time not wanting to buy it and thinking, oh, the artwork is really 90s, it's very cheesy, it's kind of, not my vibe. The minute it went out of print, I instantly realised I regretted my life choices and couldn't buy it. I had the opportunity to buy it. I think it was on for £25, but it didn't have a box, and I missed out on that because hubby asked me make an offer. I'm not going to do that in future. Now it's in astronomical prices. So this is my version of getting the unicorn deck. I still have it. The cards are a bit bigger than the original. It would be handy to have the guidebook without it being in Spanish, or without having to read it from my phone. But to all intents and purposes, I've got it. Now, the reason I originally shied away from this deck is reason that I actually love about this deck is because it's got that 90s nostalgia. It's very kind of, it's just, this appeals to my inner, vampire obsessed teen that I was, when I was 14 and my friend's mum snuck us in to interview with a vampire. don't tell anyone. My mum already knows now. You know, that kind of dark, kind of 90s gritty vibe where you've got your Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I loved horror films when I was a teenager. I don't like them now. I don't like horror films. I would religiously just watch Bram Stoker's Dracula over and over again. Lost Boys maybe not so much, but things like Underworld as well, and Interview with the Vampire, anything that was kind of vampire related. I loved Buffy as well. So this is my kind of inner teen deck, and yeah, it's all very, they're all very pale and very skinny and very beautiful. It's not inclusive at all, and it's very, you could say it has got its misogynistic undertones, but it reminds me of that time, and I'm glad that I've got this in my collection because it is a really good relationship reader. And I do have a good bond with this. So yeah, this was my unicorn deck. I don't think there are any other decks that I would love. I don't know. I keep seeing the Altered Tarot, and I keep umming and ahhing about that. Because I'm not one for nature decks, but I think because that's a photography nature deck, I would be better with it. But again, I don't know how. Again, photography decks, I've got the Somnia Tarot. I can deal with that because you can't see the people's faces and it feels like it's in a different world. I like my tarot to be in a different world. So I don't know whether I would actually get on with the Altered Tarot because I think it's too... I use tarot to escape, as a little bit of an escape to take me out of the world or things like that. I much prefer that, seeing something that is more fictional. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've got any more unicorn decks. I'm not desperate. Oh yeah, that's it actually. Yes, a greenie. So my unicorn deck would be a greenie, and they're going for silly prices at the moment. I will probably eventually get the NPC version of a greenie and then just have it like that. I like the alternatives. I don't like paying hundreds of pounds for a tarot deck. I just don't, Four of Pentacles in me, I just don't see the point. But yeah, anyway, so this is my unicorn deck. It's very 1991 kind of vibes there. Yeah. So that is the Tarot of Vampires, and I know this is not everyone's cup of tea, but yeah, it certainly has a place in my heart. Prompt number 8 is show some cards from a deck that brings you joy, a go-to deck for lifting your spirits, and I picked my one and only Labyrinth Tarot. This is an Insight Editions, pop culture deck. Insight Editions are doing a lot better in moving into scenic pips and stuff like that. I love this, and I do love this because this is a pip deck. It just brings me that comfort. I do call this my inner child, when my inner child is kind of feeling like she's in the corner and she's kind of a bit afraid and a bit wary and scared and stuff. I will ask for a message from this deck. I do love it, and although it's pips, you can read. I'm learning about open reading at the moment, or as I'm listening to, or as I'm reading my TDM book, which is the open reading book by I can't remember. I'll put a picture up. reading the position of the pips. You've got, these 4 feathers here and 4 feathers there, and like one in the middle. Like, that could be all the swirling thoughts that are kind of around that person. It's just reading, it's got little clues in the artwork, like, 2 shields and a fork, and the fork is bent. Like, it gives me like loads of little intuitive hits, and it does talk to me through images from the film, because I will, see a flash from the film, and that will kind of give me the message. So it's such a comforting, this is a comforting hug deck for me. It does bring me joy. It's Labyrinth. I was going to say, who doesn't like Labyrinth? If you grew up in the 90s and, 80s and whatever, we had children's programs and children's films that absolutely were dark as anything, and we've grown up with this very wicked sense of humor because of films like Labyrinth. I also love that the majority of the script was created by Terry Jones, who is Monty Python. So he had the main kind of story and a lot of the jokes, and you can see that in the film. You know what I mean? Like, you can see when he's going, your mother is a flipping aardvark, little things like that. And I went to see it at the cinema last year, and well, no, at the beginning of this year, and noticing even things like a spider crawling up the wall, and it was somebody with a piece of string. You couldn't see the person, but you could see the piece of string and the spider being kind of, things like that. So this brings me such comfort. It brings me, if I'm really, really feeling like I need, my inner child needs a hug, I will whack Labyrinth on. Either I will whack Labyrinth on, or I will put the Ghost concert on, the film that they did, and that will bring me comfort in different ways. If I need kind of inspirational comfort, I'll go to Ghost. If I just need, delicate inner child hugs, I will go to the Goblin King, because, again, got a soft spot for David Bowie. If you're roughly around that age, the he was magical in that film. And you know what I mean, we all, when we were primary school kids, used to kind of be like, oh, you know what I mean, it is a very, as with most 90s and 80s films and TV and stuff like that, it's very problematic and wouldn't be made today. But when you were a 12-year-old girl, David Bowie was, you know what I mean? Yeah, he was something. And that ballroom scene is amazing. Yeah. Not that I like white dresses, but that I could make an exception for that ballroom scene. Yeah. So this brings me a hug. It brings me comfort. You can kind of see what type of a, oddball child I was by, one of my favourite films of all time is, and I love puppets. I love the Muppets. I think they've done the best version of A Christmas Carol ever. I just think, yeah. You know what I mean? I grew up with the Muppets. Again, weird, wacky sense of humour, strange and stuff. And I just think it's magical. And yeah, it's well loved. I do need to probably get a backup copy in case it goes out of print and stuff, because I will never be without this deck. I'm so grateful my friend talked me into buying it, because I was like, it's a pip deck, I can't read with pip deck. And now I love reading with pip decks, and it just, it really gets me out of my head as well, because it's not scenic. It gets me more into kind of my intuition state. So I've talked too much about the Labyrinth Tarot. And then the next question. So the last question is, show some cards from a comfy, warm deck that gives deeper readings but still makes you happy when you see it. And I had to use the Tarot of the Abyss. This is my soul, my comfort deck. It just, yeah, it's making me feel a bit like misty, teary-eyed just thinking about this deck. This deck was here when I needed it. Really, really did. When I was going through, you know, I was rekindling my love of tarot. I was, you know, this really, really helped me learn and understand the tarot rather than just going for generic meanings. This really, really helped me understand what my voice with the tarot is. And I love, you know me, I love a black and white deck. I think I prefer white on black. You know, it's a bit brighter, but I don't mind, you know, darker black and white decks. I've got quite a few. This is my favourite lovers card of all time. Just chef's kiss. This and Two of Cups. Yeah. This just made it. I you know, picked up a Rider-Waite-Smith and was learning with a, you know, I was reading with a Rider-Waite-Smith and it just wasn't clicking. It just wasn't flowing. I think I picked up the Crow Tarot. The readings were better. I was feeling more intuitive, feeling it. With this, I feel like this elevated my reading so much and gave me so much confidence. And I didn't need to look in the guidebook because everything was there in the deck. And I just think this is such a deep but comfy and warm deck. It can be lovely, comfy and warm, but also it can have that deeper meaning. It can call you out where you need to, but it does it in a gentle way. It's not blunt like my Thoth or blunt like some of the other decks. I love a blunt deck. I love a deck that will give me a straight answer because I am a straight person. I don't want to spend loads and loads of time analysing. But this one just has my heart. It really does kind of encapsulate, like with that phoenix, it just encapsulates how I feel a tarot deck should be. And I just think it's absolutely a stroke of genius. And I think Anna should, you know, make more tarot decks just independently herself. I know I love her artwork. And I've got Bone, Stone and Earth Flesh, and I've got the Arthurian Tarot. But I think, yeah, I just think this just absolutely, yeah, just does it for me. And I love it. I love it. This just makes me feel like this lady. She's not caring about where the water's coming. So, and it says pull a card for a final message. So what final message do we need? What final message? Ooh, Page of Wands. So it takes hard work. That passion, that drive, that energy, it does take you, you know, picking up the sticks, being discerning. You know, if you're going to build a fire, you've got to know what type of sticks, wood is going to burn correctly. And that's learning. That's a learning curve. You've got to realize that, you know, not all sticks are made equal. Yeah. Some are pointed, some are not. But, yeah, I'm just getting lines from Monty Python in my head with a pointed stick. Anyway, sorry, digression. Yeah, not every piece of kindling that you're going to get is going to be perfect for that fire. And it's about taking those steps to learn, going out, you know, like she's barefoot, going out and getting those feet dirty, getting, you know, those hands dirty, putting in that work because you've got that passion, you've got that drive, you've got to match it with that ability to learn, that ability to, you know, collect all the firewood, to build it up, to do the, work from the ground up. That fire doesn't automatically build itself. It's got to have that work. It's got to have that it's got to have that drive. It's got to have, legwork behind it. And you've got to kind of start somewhere. If you're, got something that you want to do, and a creative idea that you've been wanting to do or whatever, just start small. Do 10 minutes, do 15 minutes. I've got loads and loads of things that I need to do at the moment. I've got a big list of them. Maybe I do 15 minutes today. That's 15 minutes more than I would have done. I'm slowly trying to close down my business, and working out tax, whatever. It's something that I'm absolutely dreading doing. If I do 15 minutes, then I'm doing something. And it's about, if you need to get somewhere, you've got to kind of chip away and start doing them steps and start making that kind of progress and learning what you need to do and doing that little and often. I don't know whether I'm making a lot of sense with that, but yeah, the Page of Wands is encouraging you to take those little steps and to be discerning about what sticks you pick up to put in your fire, and how you build that fire. You're going to learn from your mistakes. So thank you once again, Jack, for creating this tag. Jack is a wonderful creator, and he's always been so calm and so positive, and wonderful in the community. He's always been really supportive of my videos and tags that I've done, doing my tags. I know how long it takes to create tags and put them out and stuff like that, because I've done two and everything. So I really appreciate you doing this tag. And if you haven't already, I think most of you do, but check Jack out. I'll link his video below, and I will see you again soon. Have a wonderful week, my beautiful Moonbeams. Take care.